Hi, welcome to our little preview of ESPN2 Sports Night, which premieres tomorrow. I'm Keith Olbermann. This is my tag team partner, Susie Kalber. Hi.
Hi, and a cast of thousands. As you can see, we don't miss much here on ESPN2, and that includes the ultimate sports experience, Sports Smash.
And one of the fine individuals who'll be at the helm of Sports Smash. Let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, for your dining and dancing pleasure, Mr. Stuart Scott. Stuart Scott, hello.
I'll be joined by Deb Kaufman and Bill Pito, and we will bring you Sports Smash twice an hour, 25 and 55 after the hour.
That was the beginning, September 30th, 1993. The end you know about. Stu Scott's personal courage and the fight and the sadness you know about. You know these. You know. But there are other things that you might not know, the things that get understandably overwhelmed by the grief. Things which, to me, tell just as much about Stuart Scott as his battle, his perseverance, his rage against the dying of the light. In short, I cannot think of anybody I've worked with in sports whose professional courage I have admired more. I'll circle back to the personal courage. It is not to be dismissed. And in all that I will say in these next few minutes, I'm not for a moment suggesting any of this wouldn't have happened had I not been there. I say it only because I was there. Stu was the one who figured it out. When his passing was announced yesterday, the first image of Stuart Scott that jumped into my mind was the exact opposite of the serene, composed man who day after day, for the better part of 8 years, stared down death. It was on a cold day, winter 96, 97, harsh words and ugly threats flying around, and Stu not only shaken by them, but mystified by them. It had started when he had, almost alone in that era, decided to be different by being different. After 3 years of solid but pretty traditional sportscasting, he had begun to evolve, to put himself into his broadcasts. And that day, he had been called in by an executive, long since departed from his position, a surly and superficial man who had threatened to take Stu off SportsCenter. To his face, and within the hearing of others, and later quoting himself saying it, this executive told Stu that on the air he was using language that most of the audience didn't understand, and it had to stop. Stuart was aghast, and he was not alone. My jaw dropped when he told me, and it dropped again yesterday as I reviewed my ancient, brittle notes about this. But his response was the single most impressive thing I've ever seen a television sportscaster do. Like all of us in those ancient days, Stu contributed columns to the embryonic version of ESPN.com. It was a tiny part of a computer service called Prodigy, and prepare yourself to laugh, it was updated nearly once a week. And that week, Stu's column was about his use of his catchphrases, and it was full of respect and admiration for his employer's willingness to let him use his because they were evocations of his cultural and racial heritage. If I remember it correctly, he invoked the call and respond catechisms of the African American church. He traced the history and meaning of some of his specific expressions back as far as the slave plantations. Faced with what the executive probably thought was just a programming issue, but which Stuart Scott knew was racial, if not racist, and which he also knew was a pivotal moment in this company's history, Stu did not go to a reporter, he did not go to an activist, he did not go to war. In short, he did not do any of the things I would have done. He publicly congratulated ESPN's willingness to accept aspects of culture which, to that point, had not been part of its history. It was nothing less than perfect. What was the short-sighted executive going to say? How dare he compliment us and congratulate us and thank us? What was the short-sighted executive going to do? Now that he's explained the cultural resonance of his catchphrases, we're going to take him off the air? It was the highest expression of professional courage and professional intelligence. Not that it ended there. Now the column itself became a problem. You're saying our catchphrases are less meaningful than yours, said one of our senior men, long since departed from the network. This was the first time I saw that serene, straight line Stuart Scott smile, lips level, little knowing curl at the corner. I spoke up then. For crying out loud, our catchphrases are less meaningful than his. Ours are all inside jokes about ESPN managers. End of crisis. And beginning of the flourishing invigoration of the language of sports, here and elsewhere, by incorporating all parts of American culture, which is now a day after his death at the point where the phrase cooler than the other side of the pillow is indelibly associated with the late Stuart Scott, and just as indelibly associated with Vin Scully. A few months later, there was another moment of professional courage. I can still see Stu and I talking in the mailroom, and somehow the how are you turned into a seminar about the future of the business. And by coincidence, 3 or 4 of the other newer guys drifted in, and I told them that a big company was coming after ESPN and would soon start throwing money around. It was Fox. They never learn. And that the price of sportscasters was going up. And that the one thing they should not do, the one thing, was not to sign a new contract in the year ahead, because the company would try to dazzle them by promising them total security and doubling their salaries, because Fox would be talking about quadrupling their salaries. Within 6 months, everybody in that room had signed a new contract for way less than they would have been offered by Fox, including me. Everybody except Stu. And Stu had a wife and a little girl and plans for another one, and the new contract would have really helped. Instead, Stu and his professional courage and his personal courage all went out onto the limb without a contract and without a net, which was where they all were when Fox called him and offered him more than all the other guys in that room, including me, had signed for the year before. And since he liked ESPN, he said, "Give me half, I'll stay." And stay he did, right up till yesterday. As I said, his personal courage was astounding. And all I wanted to do here was make sure somebody said that it also extended to professional courage. I saw the personal courage last spring myself. When the Paley Center for Broadcasting honored the company's 35th anniversary, I had the privilege of co-hosting the part about ESPN2 with Stu. Bluntly, I had no idea how he was going to get up the 3 steps onto that stage, let alone stand there and get through a long script. Then he started talking, and I knew he was just going to do it. And I'd like you to look at our last photo together. Me, I've got complications from shingles, muscle, nerve damage in the legs, nothing serious. Stu, he's got 8 months to live. Which one of us needed the cane? The courage and the strength ran deep in this man. It always had, and in memory, it always will.